Hi there. I'm Regina. Ever been cut out of your own family's story? Yeah. My mom banned me from my dad's 70th birthday. Said it would be too awkward if I showed up. And then, my sister's boyfriend, the one she never told me about, he walked into my office on Monday morning and said, "Hi, boss." Turns out, I was his boss. They erased me at home, but couldn't escape me at work. But what hurt more than being excluded was realizing it wasn't the first time. They'd been rewriting me out for years, one silent decision at a time. How far will your own family go to keep you small? It was early October in Seattle, the kind of day where the air hinted at winter, but the leaves hadn't quite let go of their gold. I had the window cracked open, letting in that cold, sharp breeze that always helped me think clearer. My calendar was already blocked out for next weekend, 2 full days cleared for Dad's birthday. 70 was a big one. He wasn't the type to throw himself a party, but Mom? She wouldn't let it pass without a show. I had just finished confirming my flight to Boise. Direct midday, enough time to grab flowers at the airport and arrive without looking like I'd sprinted out of a boardroom. On the kitchen counter was a small wrapped box. Nothing extravagant, just a vintage pen I found in a little shop tucked behind a bookstore downtown. He always loved pens. Said they made even boring paperwork feel like poetry. As I set the box aside, my phone buzzed. Mom. I hesitated for a beat before answering. She didn't call often, not unless she needed something or had news carefully scripted to sound spontaneous. "Hi, sweetheart," she started, voice syrupy smooth. "I'm just checking in. How's the weather up there?" We exchanged the usual pleasantries. I mentioned work was busy, that things were fine. I didn't go into detail. She never asked, and I'd stopped offering years ago. After a brief lull, she exhaled sharply, like she was gearing up for something. "I wanted to talk about next weekend," I paused. "Okay," she hesitated. "Well, Jody's bringing someone, her boyfriend. It's kind of a big deal for her. He's a CFO, very polished, speaks well, very confident. I just think, maybe it's better if this year you sat it out." The words came gently, but the sting was instant. I didn't say anything. "I just think it might get awkward," she added. "You know how people compare." So there it was, not a request. A decision wrapped in concern. I'd seen this move before, one that looked polite on the surface but underneath was a full-body shove out the door. I kept my voice even. "Sure, I understand." There was a pause, long enough for her to notice I wasn't rushing to reassure her, to ease her guilt. Not that she had any. "Well, good," she replied too quickly. "We just want everything to go smoothly." I ended the call without saying much else. Then I sat down at the edge of the bed, feeling like a guest in my own family story. The clock ticked past 6. Outside, the sun was already slipping beneath the skyline, casting shadows over the hardwood floor. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and opened Instagram. Jody's page was what you'd expect. Carefully filtered smiles, brunches in curated cafes, candlelit shots of her hand in someone else's. No names, no tags, just enough mystery to stir engagement. Not once had she mentioned a boyfriend. I figured she was keeping it private, but now it was obvious. She wasn't being discreet. She was being deliberate. I scrolled through her feed. Months worth of content, all gloss and symmetry. Not a single photo of Dad. No mention of me. No family. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited. I'd been erased. I clicked my screen shut and leaned back, my eyes unfocused. Somewhere in the kitchen, the coffee maker beeped softly, reminding me I'd left a fresh cup waiting. I didn't move. "So much for family," I muttered to no one. The words felt heavy, like they belonged to someone who'd finally stopped hoping for something different. My phone lit up again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a message from Mom. "Could you still help cover Dad's medication? The bill came in early." I stared at it for a long moment. No "how are you?" No follow-up about the canceled visit, just a direct line back to what I was good for. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just set the phone face down on the table and let the silence settle. I left the phone where it was, screen dimmed, notifications still unread. The silence in my apartment had shifted. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was thick, sharp around the edges. I got up slowly, like moving too fast would shatter whatever calm I had left, and walked to the kitchen. The coffee had long gone cold. I poured it out without a second thought and instead filled a glass of water, watching the stream hit the bottom with a soft clink. I didn't drink it. I just stood there, hand gripping the counter, eyes fixed on nothing. The clock over the stove read 9:12 p.m. I made my way back to the living room and sat down in front of my laptop. I hadn't opened this particular spreadsheet in months, not since the last emergency call came in. I kept it buried behind layers of folders labeled with dry project names. No one would think to look for it. I opened the file. Top left corner. Family expenses. I scrolled. There they were, each line a small moment where I'd stepped in without hesitation. $246.31, internet plus cable. Just until Jody gets her next paycheck. $392, car battery replacement. Your dad's truck won't start, can you handle it? $1,180.45, out of pocket for mom's dental crown. We didn't expect the insurance gap. And it went on, month after month, some larger, most small. But they added up, quietly, like everything I did. The total glared up at me, $19,278.59. No one ever said thank you. They didn't even pretend it was a favor. It was always phrased like obligation, like I was the sensible one, the one who didn't need praise or recognition. Just a task and a deadline. I remembered a Sunday night, nearly midnight. I had just wrapped up a review with our clinical team, exhausted, hungry, and still in heels. That's when Mom called. Dad's cardiologist doesn't take our insurance anymore. Jody can't help this time. Could you handle the copay? And I had. I always did. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't the money. I made enough to cover it. It was the assumption, the erasure. Like my worth only existed in transactions. I was never invited, never mentioned, but always expected to pay. I moved the cursor back to the top of the spreadsheet. Then I renamed the file. Invoice for silence. The click of the save button felt heavier than it should have. I shut the laptop gently, stood up, and walked toward the window. Outside, Seattle's nightlights blinked against a hazy sky. People were probably still out, laughing, drinking, clinking glasses in celebration. It all felt distant, like I was behind some pane of soundproof glass, watching a world I used to want to belong to. I opened a bottle of wine, not because I wanted to numb the feeling, because I wanted to taste something that didn't disappoint. Glass in hand, I sat back down. My phone buzzed again. Not from Mom this time. A group text from Jody. She'd sent a link to a new podcast she was featured on. No mention of me. Of course not. As I scrolled up, I found a message from a few months ago. Jody had thrown a surprise dinner party for Mom's birthday. The family photo still stung. Balloons, cake, all smiles. I wasn't in it. I hadn't even been told there was a party. Sorry, it was super last minute, Jody had texted when I asked. Right, because the custom cake, printed menus, and gold foil name cards all screamed spontaneous. I thought back to another moment. Christmas 2 years ago. I'd mailed a gift, a framed photo of Dad holding me when I was 3. I never got a thank you, not even a text, but I did see it posted on Jody's feed the week after, captioned, "Some memories never fade." No tag, no mention. Just cropped perfectly, so no one could tell I was the one who sent it. I wasn't invisible. I was edited out. I sipped the wine. It was dry, a little bitter. Fitting. I could hear Mom's voice again in my head, the softness laced with passive commands. Let's just keep things simple. Jody already has enough pressure introducing Ethan. And suddenly I heard myself say aloud, I'm not the one making it complicated. The clock now read just past 10. I walked over to my desk, unlocked my phone, and opened the family group chat. Dozens of unread messages, one from Mom with another receipt, one from Jody about a new brand collaboration. Not a single word about the birthday call, not a single apology. I didn't respond, not out of spite, out of clarity. I tapped out of the chat, scrolled to my hidden folder, and opened the spreadsheet one last time. Then I added one more line. $0. Emotional bandwidth permanently withdrawn. Monday came too fast. Not in the way weekends disappear, but in the way you sense something's about to shift and you're not entirely ready for it. I woke up before my alarm and stared at the ceiling, letting the quiet hold me. My phone stayed on Do Not Disturb. I didn't want to see what else Mom or Jody had sent. I already knew whatever it was wouldn't contain a single ounce of apology. By 8, I was dressed and on the 21st floor of the Pacific Biogenics building, coffee in hand, pretending the weekend hadn't cracked something inside me. I had back-to-back meetings, 3 project sign-offs, and a stack of HR files to review, including final onboarding paperwork for our new senior finance executive. I opened the folder labeled Prescott Ethan. I froze. CFO, relocating from our East Coast division, scheduled to report directly to me. Prescott. The name wasn't that rare. It couldn't be the same Ethan, could it? I clicked the internal staff portal and scrolled down to his photo. There he was, blazer, clean-cut, confident smile. The same smile I saw on Jody's feed once, disguised in a wine-tasting post, the caption vague but flirtatious. Of course. I didn't need confirmation from her. I'd just gotten it here. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I simply minimized the screen, straightened the documents on my desk, and waited for the knock. It came 5 minutes later, on the dot. Come in. He stepped in with a practiced ease, file tucked under his arm. He was about to speak when his eyes locked on mine, and everything shifted. His smile faltered. His grip on the file tightened slightly. Regina? He said, more question than greeting. I kept my voice even. Welcome to Pacific Biogenics. He blinked. You're the COO? I nodded. That's correct. You'll be reporting to me directly. He didn't say anything for a beat, then cleared his throat. Right. Hi, boss. I gestured toward the seat across from mine. Have a seat. Let's walk through your onboarding. His body language screamed discomfort, but I didn't flinch. I kept my tone neutral, hands steady. I didn't ask if Jody had told him who I was. I didn't mention Boise. I didn't ask how long they'd been dating, or if she had ever spoken my name, because I already knew the answer. As we reviewed timelines and expectations, my thoughts stayed detached. I was performing, cool, efficient, professional. But beneath the surface, I kept replaying the phone call from Mom, the way she made it sound like my presence would ruin something, like I didn't belong. And now? Now the man they were so eager to impress was sitting in front of me, completely blindsided. He tried to recover. So, you and Jody, you're sisters? I nodded. Yes. Did she ever mention me? He shifted in his seat. She said you lived far away. That work kept you busy. I smiled, not warmly, not cruelly, just a firm, closed-lip kind of smile that ends conversations without words. That sounds like her. He looked down at the onboarding packet like it might offer an escape. I flipped the next page for him. Let's stay focused. I expect full transparency and detailed weekly reports, especially during Q4 planning. Understood? He straightened. Yes, of course. We finished the session in under 20 minutes. I stood to signal it was over, and he followed my lead, heading toward the door. As he stepped out, he glanced back, like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Smart. I sat back down, checked my calendar, then opened our team chat to confirm his new profile had been added. A ping from HR popped up in real time. New hire orientation photos uploaded to shared folder. Out of curiosity, or maybe something closer to instinct, I clicked. There it was, a wide shot of the welcome event last Friday. Ethan, front row, drink in hand, beaming. Right beside him, partially out of focus but unmistakable, was my nameplate, Regina Warren, COO, just behind his left shoulder. He hadn't made the connection, not then, but now? Now he had no choice. 3 days passed, and I hadn't heard a word from anyone in Boise. Not from my mom, not from Jody, and certainly not from Ethan. The silence at first had been a balm, but by the 3rd morning it felt loaded, like the air before a thunderstorm. I kept my focus tight, buried in back-to-back board reviews, but even as I sat through a budget call that Friday afternoon, I could feel it. Something was about to crack open. That evening, I got home later than usual. Seattle was already dipped in twilight, the horizon smeared with gray. I changed into sweatpants, tied my hair up, and brewed a fresh cup of black coffee. Tomorrow was Dad's 70th birthday. Not that I was invited. I had no intention of calling, no plans to send a gift, but old instincts die hard. I still had the package I bought him, the pen, tucked into my closet. I hadn't unwrapped it. I was halfway through my coffee when my laptop pinged. A video call was coming in from Aunt Lorraine. Odd. I accepted, hesitating slightly. The screen flickered, then opened to chaos. The kitchen in Boise was pitch dark, barely lit by a flashlight taped to a broomstick. Shadows danced across the walls. I heard clattering, loud voices. Someone shouted, "The meat's going to spoil!" Another voice snapped back, "I told you we needed a generator!" Aunt Lorraine's camera was angled upward, showing the ceiling fan. Still. She fumbled with the phone until I saw her tired face. "Regina, honey, thank God you picked up." I raised an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" She turned the camera, and that's when I saw them. My mother pacing in the kitchen, hair in rollers, makeup half done, looking furious. Jody near the sink, frantically swiping at her phone, clearly trying to troubleshoot something. And Ethan, yes, Ethan, kneeling near the outlets, untangling a mess of extension cords like it was a battlefield. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked slowly. "The power's out," Aunt Lorraine muttered, clearly stressed. "Everything's shutting down, the oven won't start, and your mom's losing it." As she turned the camera again, Ethan glanced up, and his eyes locked onto the screen. "Wait," he said, pausing mid-motion. "Is that—" Evelyn snapped. "Lorraine, why is she on here?" "She picked up! You were screaming for help!" Ethan stood fully now, wiping his hands. "That's Regina," he said, almost like he was realizing it out loud. She's my boss." Silence. A sudden, wide, clumsy silence. Even the shouting stopped. Jody froze with a dish rag in her hand. My mom turned so slowly I thought the feed had frozen. "She's what?" Jody asked, her voice cracking. Ethan nodded, visibly uneasy now. "Yeah, at work. She's the COO. I report to her directly." Evelyn's face contorted, first with disbelief, then confusion, then panic. "That can't be. You said she worked in science somewhere." I didn't say a word. I didn't smile. I didn't lean forward. I just stared back through the screen. Jody's voice cut through the room. "End the call." Aunt Lorraine fumbled and the screen went black, just like that. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated with a text. "Jody, you didn't need to say anything. This was Dad's day, not yours." I stared at the message for a second before another one came. "You always wait for a moment to shine, don't you? Always watching, waiting for someone to trip so you can step in and look perfect." Perfect? That's what she thought this was? I didn't reply right away. I poured myself the rest of my coffee, added a splash of oat milk, and stood in front of my living room window, watching the city move. Then I typed. I didn't say a word, but maybe silence speaks louder when it's the truth. I hit send. No emojis, no explanation. Another buzz. From Mom this time. "Did you have to let him say that? Couldn't you have just redirected the conversation?" Redirected? I closed the phone and placed it face down on the table. I sat in the dark for a while. Not dramatic darkness, just the kind that fills a room when you don't feel like flipping on the lights. The coffee cooled beside me. The hum of traffic below drifted in through a cracked window. I thought about how much effort they had put into keeping me small, out of the photo, out of the conversation, out of sight. They didn't want me silent. They wanted me silent and useful. The one who paid bills without asking, who mailed gifts no one acknowledged, who understood without needing clarity. And I had played along for far too long. I wasn't chasing validation. I wasn't asking to be paraded around like a trophy. All I had ever wanted was a seat at the damn table, a chair, a plate, a moment of truth. Not even celebration, just recognition. They'd rather I stayed in the kitchen, off camera, out of frame, holding things together. But not anymore. I opened my work laptop and scanned through unread emails. One subject line caught my eye. Board wants to confirm Ethan's role title before press release. My cursor hovered over the reply button. I didn't reply to the board immediately. Instead, I minimized the email and leaned back in my chair, letting the silence of my apartment settle over me. It was late morning in Seattle. Gray light spilled in from behind the blinds. Outside, someone was walking their dog. I could hear the soft clink of a leash. It was amazing how calm everything looked, while something inside me was sharpening. The next message came an hour later, from my mother, of course. Your dad needs to schedule another cardiology follow-up. We'll need some help again. Can you let me know by tomorrow? No, thank you. No mention of the birthday, no apology for the chaos or the exposure, just the next request, handed to me like a utility bill. This time, I didn't stare blankly. I didn't stew. I opened my laptop, clicked into my documents folder, and pulled up a draft I'd worked on months ago but never sent. The header read, Family Support Terms. It wasn't a legal document yet, but it was sharp, precise, clear. I filled in the final blanks. Monthly contribution, $1,000 contingent on equal contribution from Jody. Any assistance above the base level to be considered a loan. Upon both parents' passing, full property rights transferred solely to Regina Warren. I attached the PDF and hit send without a single added word. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a voice message. Mom's voice came through strained, halfway between a gasp and fury. Are you serious, Regina? You're turning family into business. What kind of daughter puts her parents under contract? I tapped record and answered flatly. I was part of this family, until you turned me into a utility. Now I'm just treating it for what it is, a transaction. I hit send, and for the first time in months I felt still. Later that afternoon, a message popped up from Amy Nguyen, an old high school friend who still lived in Boise. We hadn't spoken in years, but I'd always liked her honesty. Hey, just saw your mom at Traders Guild brunch, she wrote. She mentioned Jody helped cover the plumbing disaster last month. Must have been expensive. I blinked. The plumbing bill? That was me. $2,438.06 to be exact. I'd wired the money directly from my emergency fund after Mom called me in tears about the burst pipe. I opened my receipts folder, pulled up the email confirmation. I hovered over the reply field to Amy for a long second. I wanted to type, glad to know Jody's getting credit for my bank account. That must be a nice setup. But I didn't. Instead, I screenshotted the receipt and quietly saved it to my family ledger folder. No need to argue. Receipts always speak. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Most of the team had left. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. I sat by the large corner window with a mug of lemon tea, watching the skyline flicker to life as the sun dipped below the sound. Ethan passed by on his way out. He hesitated near my door, like he wasn't sure whether to say something. Then he nodded, small, respectful. I nodded back. No words exchanged. We both knew too much, and yet the silence between us was no longer awkward. It was mutual understanding. Back at my desk, I reviewed the quarterly reports, signed off on a few travel approvals, and finally, took a breath that didn't feel borrowed. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wasn't the fallback option, the extra seat in case someone else canceled. I wasn't the invisible daughter who paid quietly and waited for scraps of recognition. Now, if I was in the room, it was because I put myself there, and if I wasn't invited, I'd build my own damn table. Later that night, as I settled into bed, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jody. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Why are you doing this now? I stared at the screen. This wasn't her being confused. This was her being scared. For the first time, I was refusing to play my role, and when someone's used to you staying quiet, your boundary feels like betrayal. I didn't reply. Not yet. By the time I walked into the office the next morning, something felt off. The building looked the same. Same pale lights, same half-wilted plants near reception, same drone of printers echoing from the copy room. But the energy had shifted. Or maybe it was me who'd changed. Maybe I was finally seeing clearly. I used to brush past tension. I let sideways glances slide off my back. I chalked up awkward pauses in conversation to coincidence. But now, everything felt sharper, like someone had peeled the protective layer off the world. The usual rhythm was still playing, but now I could hear the dissonance underneath. I dropped my bag next to my desk, slid into my chair, and opened my laptop. Calendar first. 3 meetings, 2 briefings, and a budget review. Nothing that couldn't be handled. I told myself everything was under control. Then I checked my phone. 7 missed messages, 2 voicemails, and 1 screenshot from my cousin Layla, someone I hadn't heard from in months. She wasn't exactly the chatty type anymore, especially with me. So when I saw her name pop up, I braced myself. The message read, "Hey, did you really send your parents an invoice for being old?" My heart did this weird little lurch. My stomach went tight. I tapped the image attached to her message. It was a screenshot of a family group chat I was no longer in. One I'd been in once, long enough to remember how loud it could get with jokes, updates, chaos. I'd left quietly months ago when I realized the conversations always had an audience and rarely had space for nuance. Now I was seeing it from the outside. The message in question? From Jody. "Regina sent our parents a contract. She wants a clause that gives her the whole house when they die. Can you believe that? She's literally charging them to exist." I wasn't tagged, but it didn't matter. My name didn't need to be spelled out. Every word in that message had my fingerprints on it. Below were the replies, fast, judgy, predictable. That's so corporate. Wow, what happened to compassion? She's always been cold though, right? Each comment hit like a slap, but I didn't stop reading. I wanted to see how far they'd go. Then Aunt Donna added her piece. "Your mom said she's always been intense, but I didn't know she'd go this far." And there it was. The worst part. Evelyn, my mother, hadn't stepped in, hadn't defended me, hadn't said, "That's not true," or "You don't know the full story." She just let it happen and added color commentary, the kind people remember even after they forget who said what first. I sat back slowly, my fingers wrapped tightly around my phone. The office hum blurred into the background, fading beneath the thud of my pulse. But I wasn't angry in the frantic way I usually got. No hands shaking, no shallow breathing. I was steady, sharp, done. I didn't reply to Layla. I didn't jump into the group chat and try to explain, to claw back my version of the truth. They'd already built their story. They liked it better. Instead, I opened my notes app, not to vent, to document. I started typing a timeline. The day Jody called me crying, panicked about her job loss. The exact time I transferred $1,000 into her account without being asked. The short phone call after, 6 minutes, tops. The silence that followed, as if I'd just filled an obligation and she'd moved on. And then a memory crashed in, uninvited but clear as daylight. 2 days later, my mom's kitchen. I just walked in with groceries and she was on the phone, her voice light and proud. "Jody's so independent, she never takes a dime, just like I raised her." I remember stopping mid-step, a dish towel in one hand. I didn't say anything, just listened. Tried not to let it dig into me, tried to pretend it didn't hurt like hell. Back then I swallowed that moment whole. Let it sit, unacknowledged, somewhere in my chest. Not this time. I flipped to my email app and started writing. Not to them, to my lawyer. Subject: Property Clause Review and Financial Withdrawal Notice. Body: I'd like to formally begin the process of removing myself from any verbal or informal obligations tied to my parents' home or living expenses, unless outlined in a binding agreement. Let's also explore options for safeguarding past contributions and establishing limits going forward. I reread it once, not to soften it, just to make sure it was clear. Click, sent, let them talk. Let them build their own version of me out of shadows and fragments. Let them stay in their group chats, trading commentary like currency. They could keep their stories. I had my receipts, and I was done letting silence speak for me. That evening, I got home later than usual. I was tired, but not drained. There was something almost peaceful about the clarity. I poured a glass of ginger ale, ice cold, my comfort drink since childhood, and dropped onto the couch. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for work. I didn't start doom scrolling. I just sat. Breathed, existing without bracing for impact. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. One line. "We didn't raise you to be this cold." Once, that would have broken me. I would have stared at that message for hours, wondering how to explain myself in a way that felt gentle, digestible, acceptable. Not tonight. I typed back immediately. "You raised me to stay quiet. I'm done with that." I locked my phone and flipped it face down on the coffee table. Then I turned on the TV, something low stakes and forgettable, and let the voices of strangers fill the room. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. I didn't feel numb or heartbroken or desperate to be understood. I just felt done. And that, surprisingly, felt like peace. The next morning, I arrived early to the office, earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, save for the clatter of a janitor's cart somewhere down the hall and the low buzz of the HVAC kicking on. I needed this quiet. A pause before the inevitable noise. I set my coffee down and opened my laptop, fingers gliding through tabs, emails, and dashboards. Numbers, reports, approvals, all normal, all mine. Then came the ping. It was subtle, like most storms are before they break. "Did you see the company chat?" That was the message from Sam in product. Just 6 words, no emojis, no context. I opened Slack. My pulse quickened. In one of the private team channels, supposed to be limited to the analytics crew, was a thread titled, "Small world, huh?" Someone had dropped the onboarding photo from last week. The one with Ethan standing near my nameplate. Another comment followed. "Wait, Ethan's dating her sister?" Then another. "That explains the tension." And another. "Yikes, what a mess." The chat had hundreds of views, a few likes, a GIF thrown in for good measure, something snarky. I just stared at it. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It had leaked, bled into the one place I kept sacred. My work, my name. I scrolled up. It didn't say who leaked it. Maybe someone overheard something, or maybe someone had a hunch. Either way, the fire had started, and it was spreading. I muted the thread, not out of defeat, but strategy. No one could say I'd joined the circus. Let them talk. Let them guess. By midday, I was knee-deep in a quarterly report when my phone buzzed again. It was Ethan. "Can we talk?" he wrote. I didn't respond. Not yet. Later that night after dinner, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened Instagram just out of habit, and there it was, a blurry shot from a restaurant in Boise. Jody and Ethan. Tense body language. His hand midair like he was explaining something. Her face turned away. I didn't have to be there to know what was happening. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text. She saw the chat. She lost it. Accused me of embarrassing her. Said I ruined everything. He didn't add anything else. I waited. Then came the second text. I told her the truth, about you, that you didn't deserve what they've done. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Finally, I typed, "I never asked you to defend me, but thank you for seeing it." He responded with just one word, "Finally." Somewhere between the broken silence and the truth, a door had cracked open. Not long after, another message came, this time from Jody. It simply said, "You think you've won? This isn't over." No hello, no punctuation, just venom. I didn't open it. I didn't even blink. Instead, I stood up from my couch, walked over to the window, and looked out over the lights of Seattle. They had dragged me through years of quiet expectations, unspoken roles, and buried names. But now I was the one standing in the light. And if that made them uncomfortable, so be it. They were the ones who built the lie. I just stopped living inside it. The following morning felt strange. Not dramatic, just settled, like something had finally clicked into place. I brewed coffee in silence, let it sit a little too long, then poured it anyway. My phone rested on the kitchen island, quiet. No new texts from Jody, no guilt-ridden voicemails from Evelyn. Just the quiet hum of my own life, uninterrupted. Around 10 a.m., there was a knock on my office door. It was Ethan. He looked relieved, worn but lighter than I'd seen him before. No briefcase this time, no work pretense. Just a man who had finished something hard. "I told her it's over," he said simply. I didn't say anything right away. I walked over to close the door behind him and leaned back against it. He continued. "I told her I couldn't keep doing it, defending things I didn't believe, acting like loyalty meant covering for someone who erases people instead of owning anything." He met my eyes. "I should have asked more questions. I should have asked about you." "You didn't know," I said, "but now you do." He gave a small nod. "She's not just guarded, she's cruel when she's scared." I didn't argue. I didn't have to. He'd finally caught up. "I'm sorry," he added. "Don't be," I replied. "Not to me. You were lied to. But you stopped believing the lie. That matters. We stood there for a long pause. No bitterness between us. No longing either. Just the mutual understanding that we'd both outgrown the same shadow. As he turned to leave, he paused. I don't know if you're spiritual or anything, but Jody always acted like your presence ruined her balance. I think it's because you showed up holding a mirror. That's funny, I said, because I stopped trying to be her reflection a long time ago. Later that night, after dinner, I was going through emails when my phone pinged. It was from Aunt Lorraine. The preview said, "Thought you should hear this." I clicked. It was a forwarded voice memo, old, scratchy. Evelyn's voice, clear as day. Just a heads up, Regina's a little hard to explain. Best to focus on Jody if you're serious. She's easier for people to like. My eyes didn't widen. My heart didn't race. I didn't even feel the sting I once would have. I just felt done. Not broken, not enraged, just ready to end it all on my terms. I sat down and pulled out my stationery box from the hallway cabinet, the same one I used to send birthday cards and thank you notes to the people who never acknowledged them. I drafted a letter. No sarcasm, no rage, just facts. Mom, Dad, this isn't about money. It never was. This is about memory. And mine, moving forward, won't include group chats where I'm only contacted for payment. It won't include parties I'm excluded from, then blamed for not attending. It won't include gifts unwrapped off camera or holidays where my name is missing from every caption. I've rewritten mine. I won't be attending future events. I wish you peace. I no longer wish for your approval. Regina. I folded it neatly, sealed the envelope, and addressed it in full block print like I did as a child learning to write. Then I walked to the mailbox 2 blocks down, dropped it in, and stood for a second as if to mark something real. Back home, I opened my phone and deleted every contact under family, one by one, clean, quiet. It was oddly satisfying, not out of spite but clarity. They had written me out of their version for years. I just finally returned the favor. The next morning, I sat at my desk and opened my inbox. There it was. Top of the queue. Subject: Family Trust Transfer Inquiry, immediate review requested. I stared at it. I didn't hesitate. I didn't rage. I didn't reply. I just hit archive. Then I went on with my day. The air outside had that crisp edge only late autumn could bring. Seattle was cold, but clear. The sky stretched wide and pale above the city, the way it does when something feels finished, even if no one had said the words aloud. 2 weeks had passed since I mailed the letter. 2 weeks without a single word back, until this morning. I'd been working from home, nestled into my reading nook with a wool blanket and a coffee cup I didn't plan to refill. The ding of my phone made me glance over. Voicemail. From a number I hadn't saved in years, though I knew it by heart. I didn't play it at first. I just let it sit there, glowing quietly on the lock screen. Eventually, I listened. Hi, sweetheart. It's Dad. I saw the letter. I know you meant it. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry if things ever felt one-sided. Your mom had her ways. I probably didn't always do the right thing, but you didn't have to shut us out completely. That was it. Not a word about the birthday, not one about the years of omission, not even a hint of accountability, just soft avoidance and the quiet suggestion that I'd overreacted. I didn't return the call. Instead, I sat still, letting my memory take me someplace I hadn't visited in a long time. 7 years ago, a family dinner in Boise. I had flown in for the holidays, rearranged my meetings, missed a major pitch review just to be there. Mom had made a comment about my need to outshine. She'd said it casually as she passed me the potatoes. You know, sweetie, not everything's a presentation. You don't have to be on all the time. I'd frozen, looked to Dad, hoping, just hoping, for even a glance that said he saw me. He didn't say a word, just kept chewing. Eyes on his plate. Fork, chew, sip, swallow. That was the moment I realized silence was a choice, and Dad had always made his. Now, so had I. Around noon, I checked my inbox. One new message. Ethan. Subject line. Just thanks. I clicked. Hey Regina, no updates. Nothing dramatic. Just wanted to say I'm still here. Still learning. Still showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. You taught me that. Thank you for never shrinking to make others feel tall. I didn't reply. I just starred it, filed it away in a folder called Messages Worth Keeping. Later that evening, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was Aunt Lorraine. She didn't bother with greetings. "Your mother called me," she said. "Said I let you turn against the family. Said I gave you too much space to think." I sighed. "Let me guess. Now I'm cold, too calculated to love?" There was a pause on the other end. "She's spinning it," Lorraine said. "Telling people you planned all this to punish her." "She needs a villain," I said quietly. I just stopped volunteering for the part. Lorraine exhaled, and her voice softened. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," I said. "You told me the truth when no one else did. That's enough." That night, I went for a walk through Queen Anne, the neighborhood quiet except for leaves brushing across sidewalks. I passed a small bookstore tucked between a florist and a tea shop. Inside, the lights glowed warm against the dark street. I went in. The air smelled like cinnamon and old paper. A little boy brushed past me with a stack of chapter books nearly taller than him. His mother smiled, a little embarrassed. I smiled back. Not just polite, but genuinely. There was peace in not performing anymore. At the back of the store, I browsed the shelves. No purpose, just letting my fingers land wherever they wanted. Poetry, essays, old cookbooks, nothing with a family on the cover. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I watched it ring for a few seconds, then tapped the side button and let the silence wrap itself back around me. I didn't need the final word. I didn't need the stage. I just needed peace. And now I had it. And maybe that's the real story here. It's not about who got the last word or who stayed in the family photo. It's about choosing peace over permission, about walking away, not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself. For years, I believed being quiet was the respectful thing to do. That love meant swallowing hurt, ignoring red flags, and covering bills without asking for thanks. But silence is not always strength, and being the bigger person should never mean being the invisible one. So if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've been the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who carried weight you never asked to hold, this story was for you. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to ask for more, and you are allowed to walk away if you're being erased. Because healing doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like peace. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been the invisible one in your family? What did you do? What would you say to someone going through it right now? If this story touched something in you, drop a 1 inch in the comments, or tell me what city or state you're watching from. I read every reply. And hey, if you didn't like this story, let me know why. I value honesty. Tell me where you're tuning in from and what kind of stories you do want to hear. And if you want more real, raw, and reflective stories like this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps keep these voices alive. Thanks for being here.
I always thought I was good with numbers. After all, I'm an accountant. That's what I do. But that morning, as I stared at my bank statement, something didn't make sense. A $10,000 withdrawal I definitely didn't make was right there, mocking all my careful planning and budgets. My name is Anna, and until that moment, I thought I had everything under control. Sure, living with my in-laws wasn't ideal, but Adam and I agreed it would only be for a few months while they got back on their feet. That was 9 months ago. I double-checked the transaction details on my phone, my hands trembling. The money was taken out in person at our local bank yesterday afternoon, while I was stuck in a 5-hour meeting at work. "Adam," I called out, trying to stay calm. No response. Of course not. He'd already left for work, probably passing his mother on his way out. Rachel, my mother-in-law, basically lived at our kitchen table now, planning her social events and making endless phone calls. Right on cue, her voice drifted upstairs. "Anna, darling, could you bring me my reading glasses when you come down? I think I left them in the guest room." The guest rooms. What used to be my home office before they moved in. I took a deep breath, grabbed her glasses, and headed downstairs with the crumpled bank statement in my other hand. "There you are," Rachel said cheerfully, looking flawless as always, even this early in the morning. "I was just telling Tyler about the most wonderful investment opportunity." You know how these things work. You have to act quickly when luck comes your way. I froze mid-step, still holding out her glasses. Tyler? I glanced at my father-in-law, who suddenly seemed fascinated with his coffee cup. Investment opportunity. I repeated, my mind racing. I repeated the words slowly, feeling like the crumpled bank statement in my hand weighed a ton. Oh yes, dear, Rachel said casually. Adam mentioned you two were doing so well financially. And since we're family, she waved her hand as if it was no big deal. Don't worry yourself about it. Adam took care of everything yesterday. The room spun slightly as her words sank in. Adam had given his parents access to our joint account, the one where I deposited my entire paycheck every month, the one we were using to save for our own house.
And he didn't even ask me.
I need to make a phone call, I said, keeping my voice even as I turned to leave. I didn't want Rachel to see my face. As I climbed the stairs, I heard her chatting with Tyler, going on about some charity gala she was planning to host. In my house, of course. By the time I reached my phone, my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady as I dialed Adam's number, a strange calm settling over me. This wasn't just about money now. This was something bigger. Adam didn't pick up. Not once. Instead, around noon, I got a short text. Sorry, honey.
Crazy day at work.
We'll talk tonight. I was sitting in my car outside my favorite coffee shop, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. 8 missed calls, and all I got was a text. You look like you're ready to kill someone, Olivia said, tapping on my car window. Come on. I got us a table in the back. Inside, over hot coffee, I told her everything. The mysterious $10,000 withdrawal, Rachel's mention of an investment opportunity, Adam's silence. With every detail, Olivia's face darkened. So, let me get this straight, she said, putting her coffee cup down with a sharp clink. Your mother-in-law is redecorating your guest bathroom with gold fixtures. Using your money? I blinked at her, confused.
What?
You didn't see the delivery guys? Olivia asked. They were at your house this morning when I drove by. I thought you knew. There was this huge truck from Luxury Bath and Beyond in your driveway. Suddenly, my coffee tasted bitter. Acidic. $6,000 on bathroom fixtures, I said, my voice shaking. In my house. Without even asking, Olivia leaned forward, her voice firm but gentle. Anna, this isn't just about money anymore. They're literally renovating your house, without your permission. I know, I whispered, staring down at my coffee. But Adam needs to grow a spine, she cut in, or you need to grow claws. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Rachel. Darling, the contractors need a decision about the marble countertops. I picked out a lovely Italian import, but it's a bit over budget. Adam said to check with you since you're so good with numbers. Olivia leaned over my shoulder, reading the text, and let out a low whistle. Over budget? You mean over the budget of your stolen money? I started typing a response, then stopped, deleted it, and started again. How do you tell someone they've crossed a line when they don't even realize there's a line? You know what the worst part is? I said, shoving my phone into my bag. Last week, Rachel told me I should be grateful they moved in. She said Adam was finally becoming the man she raised him to be now that they're around more. Olivia raised an eyebrow. And what kind of man is that? One who apparently doesn't think he needs to check with his wife about anything. I stood up, feeling restless. I need to get back to work. But first, I'm stopping by the bank to open a new account. One without Adam's name on it. Olivia grinned. Now that's the Anna I know. Just remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. As I drove back to work, her words stuck with me. Getting free. Maybe it was time to show the Addisons exactly what kind of woman Adam had married. Later, while organizing our tax documents, the truth hit me like a slap in the face. Adam hadn't just given his parents access to our joint account. He'd been quietly transferring money to them for months. At first, the amounts were small, but they got bigger over time, all labeled as business expenses or household maintenance. I was still staring at the spreadsheet, trying to process it, when Adam came home that evening. The house smelled like his mother's signature pot roast, and I could hear her laughing with Tyler in the dining room. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. It felt like I was watching my life from the outside, like it wasn't even mine anymore. "Hey, you missed dinner," Adam said, loosening his tie. "Mom's saved you a plate. $35,000, I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. "That's how much you've given them since January." The color drained from his face. "Anna, I can explain." "Please do." I turned the laptop toward him. "Explain why you've been lying to me for months. Explain why your parents are renovating our bathroom while we're struggling to keep up with mortgage payments." "They needed help," he said, running his hands through his hair. "Dad's investments went bad and Mom. And what about us?" My voice cracked. "What about the house we were saving for? What about our plans?" "They're my parents, Anna. And I'm your wife." The words exploded out of me. Or, am I just your personal ATM? We both froze as heavy footsteps came down the hallway. Tyler appeared in the doorway, with Rachel hovering behind him. "Is everything all right?" Tyler asked, though his eyes were locked on Adam. "Son, perhaps we should." "There's nothing to discuss," I cut in, standing up. "This is between me and my husband." Rachel stepped forward, her perfectly manicured hands clasped together. "Anna, darling, you're being dramatic. Family helps family. Surely you understand. Family doesn't steal," I shot back. "Family doesn't lie." "We never stole anything," Rachel said sharply. "Adam offered to help. He knows his responsibilities to this family." "This family's?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the family that's been draining us dry while planning charity galas in my house?" "Anna, please," Adam said, reaching for my arm. I pulled away, something clicking into place as I looked at him, at all of them. I finally saw it. The way they'd slowly taken over our home, our money, our lives. And Adam had just let it happen. "I'm staying at Olivia's tonight," I said, grabbing my keys. "And when I come back, I expect real answers. All of them. I want to know where my money went." As I walked out, I heard Rachel say, "Adam, sweetheart, you can't let her speak to us this way. We're your parents." I slammed the door behind me, my hands steady as I started the car. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Olivia's guest room became my safe space for 4 days. Adam called over and over, leaving message after message, each one more desperate than the last. But I stayed quiet until I checked our online banking. He was still transferring money. I told Olivia, staring at my laptop screen glowing in her dim kitchen. Even after everything, he moved another $4,000 to their account yesterday. Olivia set down her wine glass. "Have you talked to a lawyer yet?" The word lawyer made my stomach twist. "I keep thinking about our wedding day," I said quietly. "Adam promised he'd always put us first. Now I wonder if he even remembers making that promise." My phone buzzed, a text from Adam. "Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults." Olivia read it over my shoulder and snorted. "Like adults? You mean like how he's been acting like a teenager with his mom's credit card?" I started typing a response, but then an email notification popped up from our mortgage company. My hand shook as I opened it. "Oh my God," I whispered. "We're 4 months behind on our mortgage payments." Olivia leaned in closer. "But you've been making the payments every month." "I have." My voice sounded far away, like it wasn't even mine. "But apparently, Adam's been canceling them and redirecting the money." I stared at the screen, my stomach sinking. "There's a notice of default." A knock at Olivia's front door made us both jump. Through the window, I saw Adam's car parked outside. "I'll get rid of him," Olivia said, standing up. "No," I stopped her, a strange calm settling over me. "I need to handle this." When I opened the door, Adam looked awful, unshaven, shirt wrinkled, and eyes tired. "Anna, please," he said. "Mom's beside herself. Dad's talking about moving out." "The mortgage, Adam." My voice was barely a whisper. "You've been stealing our mortgage payments." He flinched. "Dad's investment group is about to turn things around once they secure this next deal." "There is no deal, is there?" The truth hit me like a wave. "Your father's broke, and you're ruining our life to keep theirs together." "They're my family," he pleaded. We can't just abandon them. But you can abandon our future? I stepped back inside. I'm filing for separation, Adam. I suggest you talk to your parents about finding somewhere else to live. Anna, wait. I closed the door, my heart pounding but my mind clearer than it had been in months. Through the window, I watched him stand there for a long time before finally walking back to his car. You okay? Olivia asked softly. I nodded, pulling out my phone to search for divorce lawyers. I will be. For the first time in months, I actually will be. After a week at Olivia's, I came back home with divorce papers in my bag and a plan in my head. What I didn't expect was to find Rachel hosting a garden party in my backyard. There were caterers bustling around, string lights draped through the apple trees, and strangers arranging flowers on tables I didn't even recognize. Anna. Rachel waved at me like nothing had happened. You're just in time. The caterers need your approval for the menu for next weekend's charity gala. I froze on the porch, staring at the scene. What charity gala? The one we're hosting here, of course, Rachel said, adjusting a centerpiece. Adam said you'd be fine with it. The invitations have already gone out. The divorce papers felt heavy in my bag. Where's Adam? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Working late again. Poor thing, she said, lowering her voice. Though I suppose that's partly your fault, running off like a teenager throwing a tantrum. Something inside me snapped. Everyone needs to leave, I said firmly. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel replied, waving me off. Get out. My voice rang across the yard, stopping the catering staff in their tracks. All of you. This event is cancelled. Rachel's face hardened. I have 70 important guests coming next weekend. You can't just watch me. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number printed on the catering truck parked nearby. Hi, this is Anna Addison, the homeowner. I'm canceling all services for next weekend's event. No, Mrs. Rachel Addison is not authorized to make arrangements for my property. Tyler appeared from inside the house, his face red. Anna, you're embarrassing your mother. She's not my mother, I snapped, turning to the stunned staff. Please pack up and leave now. As the caterers hurried to gather their things, Rachel grabbed my arm. You ungrateful little. Let go, I said quietly, looking her dead in the eye. Or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. She released me as if my skin had burned her. Adam will hear about this, she hissed. Good. I pulled the divorce papers from my bag. He can add it to the list of things we need to discuss. Tyler stepped forward, his confidence faltering. Now, Anna, let's not be hasty. You have until tomorrow to find somewhere else to stay, I said, turning toward the house. I suggest you start packing. This isn't over. Rachel called after me. You're right, I said without looking back. It's just beginning. I walked upstairs into my house and closed the door to my bedroom. Downstairs, I could hear them arguing, could hear the catering trucks pulling away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in months, I felt in control. My phone buzzed. Adam was calling again. This time, I answered. We need to talk, I said before he could say a word. And this time, it's on my terms. I'm doing the talking, I said as Adam came home late that night, but he wasn't alone. The entire Addison family had packed into my dining room. Aunts, uncles, cousins I'd never met before. Rachel sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court. Anna, Adam said, his voice strained. Mom thought we should have a family meeting. Family meeting? I looked around at the strangers filling my house. Or an intervention? Rachel smiled, that same practiced, perfect smile that never touched her eyes. We're all concerned about your recent behavior, dear. The canceled charity gala, the threats, the divorce papers, which you had no right to tell anyone about, I cut in, looking directly at Adam. His cousin Christina, whom I'd never met, reached for my hand. We just want to help. Family stays together. I pull my hand away. You don't even know me. But we know Adam, Tyler said. And this isn't like him. The missed payments, the stress, it all started when you began pushing back against family obligations. I laughed, but it was bitter and hollow. Family obligations? Is that what we're calling financial abuse now? Nobody's abusing anyone, Adam said quickly. Mom and Dad needed help. So you stole from our mortgage payments? I snapped. The room fell silent. I looked around at their stunned faces. Did you tell them that part, Adam? Did you tell your whole family how you've been secretly funneling money to your parents while our house is about to go into foreclosure? Rachel's confident smile wavered. Adam assured us you were both doing very well financially. We were, I said coldly. Until you moved in. Now, Anna, Tyler started, but I cut him off. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Would everyone like to see exactly how well we're doing? Here's our mortgage statement. Here are Adam's secret transfers. Here's the credit card debt he's been hiding. That's enough. Adam slammed his hand on the table. No, it's not enough. I turned to face them all, my voice rising. You want to talk about family? Fine. Let's talk about how your perfect Adam and his wonderful parents have nearly bankrupted us. Let's talk about. The slap came out of nowhere. Rachel stood there, her hand still raised, her face twisted with rage. You ungrateful little witch. After everything we've done for you. The room erupted into chaos. Adam's relatives all started shouting at once, some defending Rachel, others looking shocked. Through the noise, I locked eyes with Adam, silently begging him to say something, to do something, but he just looked away. Get out, I whispered. Then louder, all of you. Get out. Anna, Adam reached for me. Don't. I stepped back, my cheek still stinging. Just don't. Without another word, I turned and walked upstairs, leaving the chaos behind. I could hear Rachel downstairs, barking orders, making plans, and taking control like she always did. But this time, something was different. This time, I was done playing nice. That night, I gathered everything: bank statements, mortgage papers, credit card bills. By morning, I had a full picture of just how much damage the Addisons had done. When Adam finally came into our bedroom, I was ready. We need to talk, he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. About how you've been lying to everyone? I asked, spreading the papers across the bed. Your parents aren't just broke, are they? They're drowning in debt. Adam's face fell. Anna, please. How bad is it, Adam? Because these credit card statements show you've been paying for everything. Their cars, their vacations, even their country club membership. They'll pay it back, he insisted. Dad's investment. There is no investment, I snapped, throwing a pile of bounce check notices at him. Your dad's been writing bad checks for months, and you've been covering for him by draining our accounts. Adam slumped against the wall, his face pale. You don't understand. Mom and Dad, they gave me everything growing up. I owe them. You owe me. My voice cracked. I'm your wife. We built this life together, and you threw it all away. For what? To keep up your mother's delusions? They're my family, he said weakly. And what am I? I asked, my words hanging in the air like a weight. The silence between us felt like a canyon, too wide to cross. Downstairs, I could hear Rachel's voice, probably planning another party we couldn't afford. I can't choose, Adam whispered. You already did, I said. I pulled out one last document, my separate bank account statement. I've moved my salary to a new account. I'm not paying for their fantasy life anymore. You can't do that, Adam said, his voice barely above a whisper. Watch me. I stood up, suddenly feeling lighter. I've also called a realtor. The house goes on the market next week. Mom will never. Your mother has no say in this, I cut him off. And neither do you anymore. I handed him the divorce papers. I've already signed my part. Adam stared at the papers, his hands shaking. If you do this, if you make me choose. I'm not making you choose, Adam. I'm choosing myself. A loud commotion downstairs made us both turn. Rachel stormed into the doorway, her face red with anger. What's this about selling the house? She demanded. Adam, tell her she can't. The house is in my name, I said calmly, cutting her off. I bought it before we were married. You all seem to have forgotten that. But we're family. Rachel's voice rose, almost hysterical. No, I said quietly, meeting her eyes. We're not. We never were. I walked past them both, down the stairs and out the front door. Behind me, their voices faded, but for the first time, I didn't care. I could hear Rachel's sharp voice and Adam's protests, but they felt distant, like background noise I didn't care about anymore. Sitting in my car, I took a deep breath and started the engine. It wasn't the revenge I thought I wanted, it was something better, freedom. 7 months later, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, admiring the simple white cabinets that had replaced Rachel's gaudy gold fixtures. The house had sold quickly, and my new townhouse felt like a fresh start. No more empty rooms, filled with other people's expectations. My phone buzzed, a text from Adam's cousin Christina. "You should know, Mom and Dad finally moved in with Rachel and Tyler. Adam's living in their pool house." I smiled, imagining Rachel's perfect world slowly falling apart under the weight of reality. For adults living off Adam's salary, pretending everything was fine. Karma has a way of balancing things out. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I opened the door to find Rachel standing there. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes gone, replaced with simple department store basics. "Anna," she said softly, "may I come in?" Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside. "Nice place," she said, glancing around. "Very you. What do you want, Rachel?" She twisted her hands together, a nervous habit I'd never seen from her before. "Adam's getting counseling for financial codependency. He wanted me to give you this." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. It wasn't for everything they had taken, but it was a start. "It was supposed to be perfect," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. "My perfect son, his perfect life. I thought if I could just control everything." She trailed off, looking lost. "That's the problem," I said. "You can't control everything or everyone." "I know that now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached for her purse. "I should go." At the door, she hesitated and turned back. "I'm sorry, Anna. Not just for the money, for everything." I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but finally understanding something I hadn't before. Rachel's perfect world had been built on fear. Fear of losing control, losing her status, losing her son's devotion. After she left, I sat in my quiet kitchen, staring at the check. 7 months ago, I wanted revenge. I wanted them all to feel the same pain they had caused me. But now, watching their carefully constructed world collapse under its own weight didn't feel like victory. It felt like freedom. My phone buzzed again. Olivia had texted. "Drinks tonight? That cute bartender is asking about you again." I smiled, thinking about fresh starts and unexpected paths. The check in my hand represented more than just money. It was a step toward accountability, maybe even redemption. But I didn't need it anymore. I snapped a photo of the check and sent it to Adam with a simple message. "Use this for your therapy. I'm good on my own." Then I texted Olivia back. "Tell the bartender I'll be there at 8. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. My name is Emily, and I'm a 30-year-old woman who once believed in fairy tale endings. 2 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when I met Eric, the man who would become my husband. This is our story, a journey of love, trust, and eventually, betrayal within what seemed like a perfect marriage. It was a regular Saturday morning when fate brought me to the corner cafe. I was absorbed in a David Warner novel when Eric walked in. He immediately stood out with his confident presence and warm smile. "Is that Warner's latest?" he asked, glancing at my book. His voice was friendly and curious. "Yeah, I just started it. He's always a good read," I replied, surprised at how easily we began talking. We chatted about our favorite authors, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Eric had a way of making me laugh. His humor was both sharp and charming. As we talked for hours, it felt like we were old friends catching up, not strangers who had just met. In the weeks that followed, Eric and I grew closer. We shared a love for music, especially old jazz, and enjoyed exploring hidden bookstores around the city. He was charming, respectful, and attentive. I found myself looking forward to our dates, each one leaving me more enchanted. One evening, as we walked along the river, Eric's tone became serious. Emily, I've never felt this way before. I think I'm falling for you, he confessed under the dim streetlights. His words filled me with warmth. I feel the same, Eric. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, I admitted, my heart racing with excitement and a bit of fear. 3 months passed, and our relationship grew even stronger. One night, during a cozy dinner at my apartment, Eric proposed. It was a simple yet deeply sincere moment, and I said yes without hesitation. I loved him and believed in our future together. But the joy of our engagement was soon mixed with worry when it was time to meet Eric's parents. His mother, Julie, was stern, with eyes that seemed to judge my every move. His father was friendlier, but he was serious, especially when it came to marriage. During a formal dinner at their house, Eric's father brought up the idea of a prenuptial agreement. It's just practical, he said plainly. The request caught me off guard, especially given my past experience with a cheating ex-boyfriend. I understood the need for a prenuptial agreement, so I agreed, but I had one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater owes the other $200,000, I said, steadying my voice. Eric looked surprised but also impressed. I promise, Emily, I'd never cheat on you, he said sincerely. I wanted to believe him and trust that this time, my heart was safe. Our wedding was beautiful, filled with laughter, dancing, and promises of forever. The first year of our marriage felt like a dream. We traveled to romantic places, enjoyed quiet evenings at home, and supported each other's goals. Eric wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend, my confidant. After the excitement of the wedding, we settled into married life more smoothly than I had expected. That first year felt like we were living in a bubble of happiness, untouched by the outside world. Our honeymoon in Lyon was magical. Walking along the Verneysen, we were just two lovebirds in a city of love. Can you believe we're here? I asked Eric one evening as we watched the Lyon Cathedral light up. He pulled me close and said, "With you, I can believe anything. This is just the start for us, Emily." Those days were filled with laughter, romantic dinners, and dreams of our future together. We returned home with a suitcase full of memories and a bond that felt unbreakable. Back home, our days fell into a comfortable routine. Eric would kiss me goodbye every morning before work, and I'd have dinner ready when he got back. We talked about everything and nothing, our conversations stretching late into the night. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, Eric said, "You know, I never thought I'd be this happy just doing everyday things like washing dishes." I playfully splashed some water at him. "That's because you have an amazing wife. It's all about good company," I teased. He laughed, catching the water in his hands. "Absolutely. Marrying you was the best decision of my life." Despite our happiness, there was growing pressure from others to start a family. At family gatherings, Eric's mom, Julie, would often drop not-so-subtle hints. "So, when are we going to hear some good news?" she asked during one Monday lunch, her voice full of expectation. I tried to play it off with a joke, saying, "Oh, you'll be the first to know when there's news," but her persistence only grew over time, and it started to wear on me. Eric noticed my discomfort and reassured me, "Don't let my mom get to you. We'll start a family when we're ready, not a minute sooner." Despite the pressure, our first year of marriage was wonderful. We celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at home, and Eric surprised me with a necklace I had admired months ago. "Happy anniversary, Emily. Here's to many more years of happiness," he said, his eyes full of love. I felt tears in my eyes as I thanked him. Thank you, Eric. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in life. That night, as we cuddled on the couch, I felt incredibly lucky. I had a husband who loved me, a cozy home, and a future that looked bright. As our third year of marriage began, the pressure from Eric's family, especially his mother Julie, started to get to me. It wasn't just about starting a family anymore, her criticisms touched every part of our lives. Julie had a way of showing her disapproval, often disguised as helpful comments. Every visit turned into a nightmare for me. One afternoon, while I was setting the table for lunch, she walked into the kitchen and looked at the food with a disapproving frown. Is this what you're serving? A bit simple, don't you think? Julie renounced, her tone full of disdain. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. I thought we'd enjoy something light today, I replied. She just sniffed, muttering under her breath about proper meals and good housekeeping. Her comments weren't just about my cooking. She found fault in everything I did, from how I decorated the house to how I spent my free time. Nothing was off limits. One evening, while Eric and I were relaxing in the living room, Julie decided to give her opinion. You know, Emily, if Eric gave me the money he spends on you, I could hire a proper cleaner and a cook. Eric looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. His silence felt like a betrayal. I was angry but managed to say, well, Julie, I'm doing my best here. What hurt the most was how Eric's attitude started to change. He began echoing his mother's criticisms, though more subtly. After one of Julie's visits, Eric casually mentioned, Mom might have a point about the house. Maybe we should consider getting some help. I felt a pang of hurt and frustration. So you think? I couldn't handle it either. No, that's not what I meant. Eric tried to backtrack, but the damage was already done. The constant criticism and Eric's growing distance were putting a strain on our marriage. We started arguing over small things, and our once easy conversations turned tense. After one particularly heated argument, I found myself asking, what happened to us, Eric? We used to be on the same team. Eric ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. I don't know, Emily. Everything just feels so complicated now. That night, I went to bed feeling lonely and misunderstood. Julie's negative comments had not only invaded my home but were also creeping into our marriage, making me wonder if our love was strong enough to survive this constant negativity. As we entered the fourth year of our marriage, I started to feel uneasy. The bright flame of our love seemed to flicker under the shadow of doubt and mistrust. It began with phone calls, several of them from someone named Gary. I noticed how Eric's behavior changed whenever that name appeared on his phone. One evening, while we were watching TV, his phone rang again, showing Gary's name. Eric quickly silenced it and put the phone away, but not before I saw the nervous glance he gave me. Who's Gary? I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding. Oh, just a new guy at work. No one important, Eric replied, but his voice sounded too relaxed, like he had rehearsed his answer. His behavior started to change. He began coming home late from work with flimsy and inconsistent excuses. He also started dressing differently, trading his casual clothes for sharp, tailored suits. Working late again? I asked one night as he got ready to leave, noticing how dressed up he was. Yeah, big project, he said, avoiding my eyes. Don't wait up. One day, my frustration reached a breaking point. As Eric was about to leave for another late night at work, I confronted him. This isn't like you, Eric. What's really going on? I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. Eric sighed, his face showing a mix of guilt and annoyance. I told you, it's just work. Why can't you trust me? Eric said, frustrated. Because you're hiding something. You're never here, and when you are, it's like you're a million miles away. I shot back, my eyes filling with tears. Eric didn't respond. He just grabbed his coat and left, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than ever. That night, as I lay in our empty bed, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo of doubt and suspicion. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was. The next morning, I called a private detective. It felt like a betrayal, but the constant worry and uncertainty were eating me alive. I needed answers, no matter what they revealed about the man I thought I knew. The days after contacting the detective were filled with anxiety and anticipation. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to keep everything normal while my world was quietly falling apart. Then the call came, and with it, the shattering of my last hope. Mrs. Joseph, we have conclusive evidence. I'm afraid your suspicions were correct. The detective's voice was serious, heavy with the weight of the news. He explained that Eric had been having an affair. The mysterious Gary on his phone was actually a woman. My heart sank as he detailed their meetings, providing timestamps and photos. It was undeniable. I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling a mix of devastation and vindication. My worst fears were now cold, hard facts. Despite the pain, I decided not to confront Eric immediately. I needed more than just proof of his infidelity. I needed to understand the full extent of his deceit. One evening, as I passed by his home office, I overheard a conversation that sent chills down my spine. Eric was talking to his mother, Julie. "Mom, I'm planning to end it with Emily after your birthday." Eric's voice was cold, lacking any affection he once had for me. "Oh, that's wise, dear. Just make sure she gets me a nice 62 birthday present before you drop the bomb," Julie replied, her voice so callous it took my breath away. I leaned against the wall, feeling sick. Not only was my husband unfaithful, but he and his mother were plotting against me, waiting to use me for one last expensive gift before discarding me. Fueled by a mix of anger and resolve, I knew what I had to do. I decided to play along, acting as if nothing was wrong while secretly gathering more evidence of Eric's infidelity. The detective provided me with everything: photos, videos, and even audio recordings. I was building my case, preparing for the moment I would strike back. Each night, as I lay in bed next to the man who had betrayed me, a plan began to form. I would wait until after Julie's birthday, letting them believe they had outsmarted me. But when they least expected it, I would reveal everything and turn the tables. As Julie's 62 birthday approached, I put on a mask of ignorance, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was filled with anger, betrayal, and a fierce determination to see my plan through. A few days before the birthday, Julie casually mentioned her upcoming celebration during a family dinner. "So, Emily, I'm expecting a grand 62 birthday. You must have planned something special for me," she said with a sly smile, clearly anticipating a lavish gift. Keeping my emotions in check, I replied with fake enthusiasm, "Of course, Julie. I've arranged a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. It'll be a night to remember." Her eyes lit up with delight, not realizing the trap I was setting. "Oh, how wonderful. I can't wait. Just a small family gathering, right?" "Yes, very intimate and exclusive, just for close family," I confirmed, my words laced with hidden irony. Later that night, Eric approached me, suspicion in his voice. "That's quite a generous plan for Mom's birthday. Are you sure about this?" I looked at him, keeping my composure. "Absolutely. It's a significant birthday, and I want to do something special for her." Eric seemed satisfied but puzzled by my willingness to indulge his mother. As the day of the dinner drew near, I made the final arrangements. I confirmed the booking in Julie's name, rechecked the guest list, and ensured everything was set for the grand evening. On the surface, I was the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, but underneath, I was ready to expose the betrayal and deceit that had poisoned our marriage. The night before the dinner, as I lay in bed, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. I was hours away from turning the tables on Eric and Julie. They thought they were using me for one last benefit before discarding me, but little did they know, I was the one in control now. The evening of Julie's 62nd birthday was set in a luxurious restaurant, every detail meticulously planned to reflect the grandeur of the occasion. As Julie basked in the luxury, she had no idea what was about to unfold. I played the role of the gracious daughter-in-law, hiding my inner turmoil behind a practiced smile. As dinner came to an end, the waiter presented the bill. It was $6,200. I reached for my card with a steady hand, even though my heart was pounding. After I swiped the card, I glanced around the table. Julie had a satisfied smirk, and Eric looked uneasy. "Thank you for such a wonderful evening, Emily. This is truly generous," Julie said, her voice dripping with insincerity. Then Eric leaned in, his voice full of mockery. "By the way, Emily, I want a divorce." The words hit me hard, but I refused to show my pain. Julie quickly added, "Well then, I guess you should leave. This is a family gathering after all." Without a word, I stood up and left the restaurant, keeping my dignity intact despite the storm inside me. As I walked away, I pulled out my phone and canceled the payment. Then, with a few taps, I blocked the shared account, ensuring Eric couldn't cover the cost either. Back at home, I packed my belongings quickly, feeling the finality of my actions. I was leaving this chapter of my life behind, stepping into an uncertain but hopeful future. Soon, my phone started ringing nonstop. I answered, and Julie's voice, shrill with rage and panic, filled my ears. The payment didn't go through. The restaurant staff called the police. "What have you done?" Her words were full of anger and disbelief, but I stayed silent, letting her rant. This was their doing, their betrayal and manipulation coming back to haunt them. After hanging up, I looked around the empty house. It was once filled with dreams and love, but now it was just a hollow shell. I took a deep breath, stepped out the door, and didn't look back. The calls kept coming, desperate pleas for help that I no longer felt obligated to answer. I had made my move, exposed their deceit, and now it was time for me to rebuild my life away from the lies and pain that had consumed me for too long. After leaving my marital home, I spent a restless night at a friend's place, my mind racing with thoughts of what I needed to do next. The morning sun brought clarity and determination. It was time for the final confrontation. I arrived at the house to find Eric and Julie waiting, their faces a mix of anger and confusion. I was ready, holding the divorce papers and the evidence of Eric's infidelity. I prepared myself for what was coming. Julie was the first to break the silence, her voice full of scorn. "So, you've come crawling back after embarrassing us like that?" I met her gaze, not backing down. "I'm not here to crawl. I'm here for a divorce." Eric, who had announced our divorce just a day ago, suddenly tried to backtrack. "Emily, can't we talk about this?" It was a mistake. I cut him off, holding up the evidence. "Save it, Eric. Your mistake wasn't just a one-time thing. It was ongoing and well-documented." Julie scoffed, trying to take control. "You think you can just walk away and leave us with nothing? You're nothing without us." I placed the divorce papers on the table. "Actually, you're the ones who'll be leaving with nothing. According to our prenup, Eric owes me $200,000 for his infidelity." Eric's face went pale, and Julie's eyes widened in shock. As they scrambled to respond, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. This was at the end of the lies, the deceit, and the pain. "You can try to fight this, but the evidence is clear. I suggest you pay up and move on," I said, my voice steady. Eric looked defeated, and Julie was speechless, her usual bravado gone. Without saying another word, I turned and walked out of the house, closing the door behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. The calls and pleas that followed fell on deaf ears. I had closed that chapter of my life for good. In the end, they paid. Eric had to borrow money from his parents, but I didn't care where it came from. It was a small price for the betrayal, but more importantly, it was closure. As I sat in the lawyer's office signing the last of the papers, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been painful, full of betrayal and heartache, but I had come out stronger, more resilient. I walked out into the sunlight, a free woman, ready to start anew. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. After all the darkness, I finally felt like I was stepping into the light. My husband and mother-in-law laughed and showed me a piece of paper. It had ridiculous things written on it, like giving the house to my husband and not complaining, and it even had my mother's signature on it. I immediately thought someone had tricked her into signing it. This was clearly a scam. When I asked about it, my mother calmly said, "Yes, that's my handwriting," without fully understanding the situation. We were then kicked out of the house, and I was handed divorce papers. My husband looked at me, hoping I would beg to stay with him. But I refused to look back, knowing he would eventually understand. As I clenched my teeth, my mother quietly said, "This is happiness." My name is Amy. I'm a 55-year-old housewife who works part-time. Lately, I've been dealing with severe hand eczema, but there's something that worries me even more. My mother's possible dementia. She hasn't been officially diagnosed, but her memory and judgment are getting worse. She often forgets things and sometimes can't even remember what she's forgotten. Her personality sometimes changes unexpectedly. Some days, these things happen a lot, while other days, she's perfectly normal. She used to be hardworking and attentive, but after injuring her knee, she mostly stays inside, and her condition seems to have gotten worse. Her knee is healed, but for safety, I don't want her going out alone. My father and I try to manage our daily lives while taking care of her. When I'm at work, my father watches over her at home to make sure she's okay. I'm worried about her symptoms getting worse and frustrated by my unhelpful husband. We need to make a plan for the future. One day, my father got seriously ill and needed to stay in the hospital for a long time, which made it impossible to leave my mother alone. I could afford to take some time off from work, so I talked to my husband about it. He acted like it wasn't his problem, saying, "You worry too much. Fires can start from small things, and she could get lost, but if you worry about everything, it never ends." My husband seemed really annoyed. We've lived with my mother for a long time, but his attitude this time was just too much. After all, the reason we're living with her is because my husband doesn't make enough money, and we're dependent on her. Even a bird knows to return a favor, so why doesn't he show any appreciation? Then he said, "Why don't you quit your job and take care of her?" But it's not that simple. Even though it's just a part-time job, I had no intention of quitting because the income is decent. It made me want to ask if he would support me if I quit. I told him, "I think we can continue as we have been, using care services and with your help." He responded, "Why me? It's your mother, not mine." I said, "That's true, but we're family. Shouldn't we handle this together?" But he said, "Her condition isn't even bad enough to need care services yet. And you've been complaining about your hand eczema and the pain from standing at your part-time job at the beauty salon. Just quit already." Then he left in a huff. His words hurt. Yes, I have hand eczema, but I never said I wanted to quit my job. It angered me that he belittled my work. I knew this moment might come, where he'd act like it's not his responsibility, but it still stung. We're family, and I thought about how I'd feel if his mother were in the same situation. It was frustrating, but there wasn't much I could do. I work part-time, so I have some flexibility, but thinking about the future, when my mother might need help with things like changing clothes or bathing, I worry. If I quit being a hairstylist now, it would be hard to return to the field later. Trends and chemicals in the industry change all the time, and keeping up would be difficult. I have clients who specifically request me, but there are many other hairstylists. However, Only I can take care of my mother. Feeling down won't change anything, so I need to stay positive and keep moving forward. Once my father is discharged from the hospital, we should be able to return to our normal life. To make that happen, I plan to have my mother thoroughly checked at the hospital, have a serious talk with my husband, apply for home care services, and plan for the future. I really don't want to quit my job, so I plan to ask for some time off instead. But a few days after making that decision, my father, who was in the hospital, suddenly passed away. I couldn't believe it. When a relative dies, there's no time to mourn properly because there's so many things to do. Funeral arrangements and other procedures keep coming one after another. My mother was heartbroken, sometimes looking lost like a child and other times bursting into tears. But when she put on her mourning clothes, she changed completely, taking on her role as the chief mourner with dignity. I did my best to support her and stayed by her side the whole time. It all happened so quickly, but we were able to say goodbye to my father. For the first time, we truly felt the loneliness of his absence. We were both emotionally and physically exhausted. My father wasn't a talkative man, but I remember his kind heart. I know he's gone, but his chair, teacup, reading glasses, and the novel he was halfway through are still where he left them. Neither my mother nor I are ready to put these things away yet. At this time, my husband brought his parents over. He had mentioned earlier that he would bring them to help clean up the house. While I appreciated the thought, I wasn't ready for that yet. So, I decided to decline their help and just serve them tea before asking them to leave. My mother seemed very tired and soon started dozing off, so I wanted to let her rest. I led my in-laws to the dining room and prepared tea. My husband said, "Not tea, make coffee, and bring out something sweet." For a moment, I thought, these are your parents. Why don't you take care of them? But holding on to resentment is pointless. I've decided to live positively. My mother-in-law and husband suggested calling a service to dispose of the large items quickly. I wish they wouldn't make decisions on their own. I told them, "I'm sorry, but I'm not ready to clean up yet." My mother-in-law was surprised, but I explained, "My mother and I aren't emotionally ready yet. Let's postpone it for a little while longer." When I explained this, my mother-in-law looked doubtful and said, "That's troublesome. We can't do that." I didn't understand why it would be troublesome for her. I looked at my husband for his reaction, but he avoided my gaze. She then mentioned that the house had already been passed on to the eldest son and his wife, and that renovations were about to start soon. Confused, I asked, "What about where we will go?" My husband suddenly declared, "From now on, I'll live here with my parents." I was shocked and asked, "What are you talking about? This is my home." My husband wouldn't look me in the eyes. My mother-in-law then chimed in as if it were obvious. "Amy, didn't you know? I did tell you, but you probably forgot because you were busy with the funeral." My husband added calmly, "Everything has already been decided." I was in disbelief. There's no way I would miss such important information, no matter how busy I was. "You can't do this without my consent." My husband responded, "Your consent isn't needed anymore. It's already resolved." I asked, "What do you mean?" He replied, "I've already settled it with your mother." It felt like cold water had been thrown on me. When did this discussion even happen? Could it be that they decided this while my mother was not fully aware? This can't be allowed. I stood there, stunned. My mother-in-law then said to my husband, "You know, someone who has quit their job and an old person who needs lots of care can be a handful, right?" My husband nodded in agreement and said, "That's right. That's why you two need to leave this house, and preferably soon." I was too shocked by her words to even respond. Was she referring to my mother and me as someone who does nothing and an old person who needs care? Why do we have to leave? This is my parents' house. I pleaded, "Please take that back. This is my home, and my mother does not have dementia." But they just smiled, ignoring my words. My husband and mother-in-law then pulled out a document. "There's no taking it back. We've already got the signatures on paper." The document contained ridiculous terms like giving the house to my husband and not complaining, and it even had my mother's signature on it. I looked closely, and indeed, it was my mother's signature. I could only think it was a scam that forced her to sign. This is completely invalid. I asked. Did you make her sign this while she wasn't in her right mind? That's not valid. What are you talking about? You just said she doesn't have dementia, my husband replied. Just then my mother, who should have been resting, suddenly appeared and greeted everyone cheerfully. Hello, everyone. What brings you here today? My husband quickly asked her. This signature is your handwriting, right? You did sign here? Yes, this is my handwriting, my mother calmly confirmed. This was a despicable trick. My husband then said, Now that you understand, pack your things and leave the house. Impossible, I responded. If you continue to stay here, I'll call the police for trespassing, he threatened. This situation was completely unreasonable. Without getting to the bottom of it, we were forced out of the house with a completed divorce form. My husband looked at me with a smirk, as if expecting me to beg or cling to him. I tried hard not to meet his eyes, holding back my anger. As we left, I wanted to take something of my father's with me, and I managed to grab a pair of his leather shoes. I remembered how much he cared for them. Though men's shoes might not be useful to me, it felt better than leaving with nothing. My mother and I got into the car and just started driving aimlessly. I was overwhelmed with anger at my husband and his parents, sadness over what I had lost, and a deep sense of despair about our future. It felt impossible to have hope. I couldn't stop my tears. Then my mother, who had been quiet, softly said, This is happiness. Even after my father's sudden death and being forced out of our home, my mother expressed emotions opposite to mine. I wondered if she was confused. I felt a mix of complex emotions that I couldn't describe, and I had no words to reply. But my mother continued, It feels refreshing. Unnecessary things naturally drift away, and you don't have any regrets, do you? But I do have attachments to my childhood home, I replied bluntly. My mother laughed and said, That old big house is falling apart. Why do they even like it? It's hard to maintain and get rid of, but it's lucky that they're taking it off our hands. Her optimistic attitude surprised me. I wanted Dad to live longer. What are you talking about? It was better this way. I didn't want to see him sad, my mother said. I asked, What about the furniture and appliances you liked and picked out? Aren't you sad to let them go? She replied, We can just buy new ones, that's the fun part. I was surprised and asked, Aren't you upset about being called an old, senile person? She calmly said, That's a path everyone will follow. Even though I felt like we had lost everything, my mother was incredibly calm. It annoyed me because I thought she might forget all of this soon anyway. Then she said, I'm truly happy when you're by my side. If you weren't here, maybe I would have followed your father. I tried to comfort her, saying, Mom, don't worry, it's okay. She nodded and started dozing off again, her innocence reminding me of a child. I realized that as long as I could remember the things my mother forgot, we would be okay. Even though I wasn't fully recovered from everything, being with my mother made me feel like I could handle it. Right after that, I received a message from my husband. If you beg me, I might forgive you. It shouldn't be a problem to put your mother in a facility. I was shocked. Forgive me? Did I do something wrong? It was clear they wanted to treat me like a maid. I didn't want to continue the conversation, so I just replied, That's fine, and ended the call. After that, everything became clear. I realized I no longer needed my husband. I explained the situation to my part-time job and decided to become an independent hairstylist. Using my savings, I bought a small house in the next town. The house had been used as both a residence and a hair salon. The owner of my part-time job helped me arrange the purchase, and I got it for an unbelievably low price. It allowed me to work while taking care of my mother at home. The owner also supported me by helping with the equipment and renovations for the shop, saying, Amy has supported us for a long time. Their kindness deeply touched my weary heart. I used up all my savings to open the salon, but I had no regrets. I had given up on owning my own salon because my husband was against it, but it was a dream I'd held for many years. Whether I would succeed or not was uncertain, but the excitement of new challenges outweighed any lingering anger towards my husband and his parents. I was determined not to look back. Finally, I opened my own hair salon, a dream come true. My mother helped with cleaning and laundry at the salon. She enjoyed gardening in her free time, and talking with the neighbors became part of our daily routine. It really helped that they promoted the shop. As my new life with my mother settled down, I found that the time I spent daydreaming also decreased. I received a message from my husband. "Why aren't you contacting me? I said I would forgive you, didn't I? Come back home immediately." I was confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" He replied, "Don't be stubborn when you're struggling," with a scoff in his voice. I tilted my head, wondering, am I really struggling? "Where did you hear that?" He continued, "I heard you opened your own salon. It's impossible for an older hairstylist to manage alone, especially with a mother with dementia. That must be tough." I couldn't believe he was making such baseless assumptions. In fact, I was doing much better financially than when I was working part-time. If there was nothing more to discuss, I told him I was going to hang up. "Wait," he said. "I want to return your father's belongings. Could you come to the house?" The thought of my father's belongings caught my attention. I had hardly been able to take anything with me when we left, and though my mother had said memories were enough, I still wanted to keep whatever was left. I left my mother with a neighbor and headed back to my childhood home for the first time in a while. At that moment, I forgot how badly my husband had treated me and even felt a bit thankful. When I arrived, the entrance to my childhood home was a mess. Cardboard boxes were piled up, and mud and dead leaves were scattered everywhere. I was shocked to see the house so dirty, and my ex-husband came out from inside. "Hey, long time no see," he said. I replied, "I'm short on time. Please hand over my father's belongings quickly." "Come in and take them," he said. It had been a long time since I returned to my childhood home, and it was so filthy that I hesitated to even take off my shoes. Things were scattered everywhere, and he complained that his mother couldn't clean it up, as the wife of the eldest son used to do it in their previous home. I wondered why he wouldn't clean up himself. He was still as lacking in compassion as ever, but that didn't concern me anymore. I had no attachment left to this house, which had been ruined by others. What used to be the living room was now where my ex-husband slept. The room was a mess, with snack wrappers and drink containers scattered around, and a bad smell lingered in the air. It made me not even want to breathe. "This is filthy," I thought to myself. I blurted out, "This is filthy," without thinking, and my husband replied, "Right, that's why you should come and clean." His suggestion was absurd. He added, "Really, if you had apologized earlier, it wouldn't have gotten this bad. For $25 an hour, you could clean up. It's a good deal, and you'd make some money too." He smiled, clearly thinking I was desperate for cash. I didn't see any point in arguing, and just wanted to leave quickly. "I refuse. Please hand over my father's belongings now," I said firmly. He hesitated before saying, "It seems my mother accidentally threw them away." So that's what happened. While I wasn't entirely surprised, it was still disappointing. But this made my decision clear. I had nothing more to expect from this house or my husband. As I was about to leave, he blocked my way. "How annoying. Please move." "Wait, don't be mad. It's okay for you to come back, just you," he said. "Really? You're such a bother. You should have just complied. Listen, this is your last chance." "I don't understand. What are you dissatisfied with? If you need a maid, you should hire someone else." "Hey, don't get ahead of yourself. What can a part-time worker do?" he sneered. I felt insulted. It was ridiculous. Had he forgotten that I worked part-time because he didn't want me earning more? I had supported him so he could focus on his career, but now I was fed up with being looked down upon. "You're in the way," I said.
What?
I said, "You're in the way. You can't do anything with your meager salary." "What?" "Ask your beloved mother to clean." Stunned, my husband watched as I left the house. I felt lighter as I saw how much things had changed. I no longer felt any attachment to the house. Though I was disappointed that nothing was left of my father's belongings, it was better than being held captive by memories. The look of surprise on my husband's face was something to see. Now, I needed to get home quickly. My mother was waiting for me. Later, I received a job offer from the owner of the beauty salon where I used to work. It was for a mobile beauty service, providing home visits to clients who needed care and couldn't make it to the salon. I registered with the local government and began visiting homes upon request from the community. Sometimes, I also worked at care facilities. There are hairstylists who specialize in the service, and I was glad to join them. I also had regular customers at my own salon, so taking on this new job once a week seemed doable. However, I had my mother to consider. She couldn't be left alone. While she had been doing well lately, she didn't like going out much. One day, as I was thinking it over, my mother said, "Why not? I'll come with you and help out." At first, I thought of an assistant as someone training to be a hairstylist, but her idea was eye-opening. We could go out together. The doctor had said that staying active and engaging with others was important for preventing dementia. Instead of just worrying, I realized it was important to try new things, so I decided to take on the job a few times a week. When we visited clients, my mother helped with tidying up and chatting with them, acting as a great assistant. She was active and attentive, just like she used to be. No more absent-mindedness. Then one day, my husband showed up at the salon. "What did you come for?" I asked, feeling tense. It was inevitable that the location of my shop would become known, but I wondered if he was here to cause trouble. When would he stop being a nuisance? I positioned myself in front of my mother, ready to call the police if needed. He asked, "Could you give me a shampoo and cut?" "Don't fool around. What do you want?" I replied. He sighed and said, "I received an eviction notice from the real estate agent."
What?
"You sold that land and house, didn't you?" I asked, confused. "I didn't do anything like that. They thought it was an abandoned house and sent a cleaning crew." This is no joke. I suddenly realized what had happened. It was my mother's doing. She had either let go of the family home or completed the ownership change she mentioned before. But wait, the only thing my mother signed was that suspicious contract. Did he really think homemade documents could settle everything? I was shocked by his incompetence. "Give it back." "That's my house," he demanded. "It seems the demolition has already started." "I don't know anything about that," I replied calmly. "Are you going to kick my elderly parents out of their home?" he asked. "After you took my mother's house?" "I don't care," I said firmly. "Then I'll make this house my own." Owning a salon and having a maid isn't that perfect. He arrogantly opened the door to the house attached to the shop. "Don't enter without permission," I warned him. I was about to call the police when my husband suddenly calmed down. He noticed my father's leather shoes by the entrance and asked with a trembling voice, "What's this? Is there someone new already?" That morning, I had taken the shoes out of the box and decided to polish them. He probably didn't realize they belonged to my father. Given that this was the same husband who didn't notice when I cut my hair by 8 inches, it wasn't surprising he didn't remember whose shoes they were. "Are you cheating on me, even though I'm still here?" he demanded, turning red with anger. "Huh? We've been separated for a while."
Who are you talking about?
I replied, amused by his reaction. "I can't forgive this," he shouted. "Can't forgive what?" I thought to myself, what is he thinking? I couldn't help but smirk. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to give him a little scare. "Are you ready to face what's coming?" I asked, staring intently at his face. "You should know that those expensive shoes suggest that half-heartedness will lead to painful consequences." He started sweating, his eyes darting around in panic. I couldn't believe how easily rattled my prideful husband was. "You're awfully quiet. What's wrong? Should I call him now?" I teased. "Call who? Is someone here?" he stammered. "Hey darling, can you come here, please?" I called out casually. Without another word, my husband bolted out the door like a whirlwind. My mother covered her face, trying to suppress her laughter. "Look how fast he can run away," she said, and we both started laughing together. The tension melted away, and I felt a sense of relief. "I wonder who you called," my mother said, still giggling. "Your acting was marvelous." I joined in her laughter. I doubted my husband would ever come back. "Thank you, Dad, for your help," I thought, looking at the shoes. It turned out that it was my mother who had arranged for our former house to be sold. I asked, "You wouldn't really go through with changing the ownership, would you? Did you know everything?" "Of course," she replied, without hesitation. "Signing that document couldn't possibly have any effect. That was the plan from the start." I just thought it might be difficult if they knew about the dementia, so I was just watching how things would go. I was surprised that she was aware of her cognitive impairment. But then she added, lately, my mind has become clearer, as if the fog has lifted. I think I'm getting better. I still forget things sometimes, but I've always been that way. However, easily giving up our home wasn't something I wanted to do. But it was actually your father's idea to sell the house. The plan was to sell it after you both moved out, and then move to a convenient apartment near the station. Life doesn't always go as planned, does it? That's true, I agreed. Thinking back, the signs of dementia began to show when my mother became more housebound. She's naturally energetic and thrives on interacting with people, staying active both mentally and physically. I hope she continues to stay healthy. She then said, I've earned my own pocket money as your assistant, so you don't need to worry about me for a while. As for my ex-husband and his parents, they tried to return to their old home, but the eldest son and his wife wouldn't let them. Considering my mother-in-law's difficult personality, she disliked cleaning and my self-centered, unhygienic ex-husband. It's no surprise they were refused. The house was already in the eldest son's name, so they couldn't do anything about it. Their relationship seems to have fallen apart, with each blaming the other. My ex-husband was blamed for losing their place to live. Out of necessity, he bought a used house with a high mortgage, but knowing his savings and income, it seemed like a reckless decision. He'll have to live frugally to pay off the debt. The new home already looked like a mess, and they had just moved in. They even got scolded by the strict neighborhood association president for stacking garbage bags in front of the house, which made them unpopular with the neighbors. They really need to clean up. Honestly, it's none of my business and I don't care much, but I hope they don't bother others. His parents are still healthy, so they should work to support their low-income son. If they don't want to be scolded, they'll at least have to clean up after themselves. It could even help prevent dementia. Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Halton. I'm 29 years old and a software developer. My journey is deeply shaped by two remarkable individuals who have played pivotal roles in my life. My incredible grandmother, Brianna, and Tony Bennett, my ex-fiancé. Let me take you through my story. When I was just 13 years old, I faced a life-altering tragedy. My parents were taken from me in a car accident, and my world turned upside down. But amidst the darkness, my grandmother Brianna stepped in to raise me. She's a woman of grace, strength, and endless love, and her sprawling mansion became my sanctuary. Growing up under her wing, I was inspired to dream big, work hard, and never lose faith in life's possibilities. Fast forward to the present day, I've built a successful career as a software developer. Securing coding contracts and navigating the ever-evolving tech world has been both challenging and rewarding. Grandma Brianna has always been my biggest cheerleader. One evening, as she adjusted family photos on the fireplace mantel, she turned to me with a warm smile and said, "These contracts you're landing are impressive, sweetie, but what makes me happiest is seeing you find someone worthy of your heart." At the time, I had a sparkling engagement ring on my finger, a symbol of my future with Tony Bennett. I smiled at her and replied, "Tony is different, Grandma. He understands me, even my tech talk. His real estate business is booming, and he's been nothing but supportive." But not everyone shared my enthusiasm. Over coffee, my best friend Claire gave me one of her trademark skeptical looks. "I don't know, Leah. Something about Tony feels off. He talks about all these big deals, but where's the proof? He's always vague." I laughed it off. "Not everyone needs to post their wins on LinkedIn, Claire. He's just private about his business." Then there was Paige, Tony's sister, who seemed to suddenly attach herself to me like a new best friend. "Leah, darling," she'd coo, "have you chosen the wedding venue yet? Tony is beyond thrilled about this wedding. Oh, and speaking of, you might want to consider a prenuptial agreement, with Brianna's fortune and all." Her suggestion struck a nerve. "That's none of your business, Paige," I snapped, trying to keep my composure. Grandma Brianna, ever the visionary, surprised me one evening with an unexpected announcement. "Leah dear, I want you to have early access to part of your inheritance." Let's make this wedding everything you've ever dreamed of. When I shared the news with Tony, his eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Meanwhile, his best friend Olivier became a regular presence during the wedding planning. Always cheerful, he'd say, "Tony can't stop talking about you, Leah." I've never seen him so invested in someone. Yet, amid the celebratory atmosphere, there were undercurrents of unease. Paige's husband, Luke, was a quiet observer. He didn't hover or meddle, but his sharp eyes missed nothing. Once, as Tony and Paige whispered conspiratorially in a corner, Luke muttered to me, "You're good for this family," with a look I couldn't quite decipher. Through it all, doubts began to creep in. Was Claire right? Were Paige's prying and Tony's sudden excitement over the inherent signs of something deeper? And what about Luke's cryptic remark? What seemed like the beginning of a perfect new chapter in my life quickly turned into a whirlwind of unanswered questions, secrets, and revelations that would challenge everything I thought I knew. Looking back, those moments were only the beginning of a journey I never saw coming. Wedding planning consumed 7 months of my life. Tony convinced me to open a joint account for the expenses, calling it practice for our future. I was so in love that I agreed without hesitation. When I saw the guest list, I couldn't help but ask, "For 100 guests?" "Brianna's connections will be great for my business," he replied with a grin. I frowned. "This isn't about business, Tony. It's about us." "Of course, babe," he said, kissing my forehead. But his eyes flicked briefly to the inheritance papers on my desk. Grandma Brianna, ever the supportive force, was thrilled to help with every detail. "You'll be the most beautiful bride, sweetheart. I can finally rest easy knowing you'll be taken care of." I just smiled, hanging my wedding dress and preparing for the biggest day of my life. If only I'd known what was coming. On the day of the wedding, I stood in the bridal suite, my hands shaking as I checked my phone for the 100th time. 400 guests waited, but Tony wasn't answering. "He's probably just stuck in traffic," Claire said, though I could hear the tremble in her voice. Minutes turned to hours, and the whispers outside grew louder. Then Olivier burst into the room, his face pale. "Leah, I'm so sorry. Tony, he's gone." The words hit me like a punch. "What do you mean, gone?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "He left with Jamie," Olivier said, his voice heavy with regret. "Paige's friend from the yoga studio. They took a flight to New York this morning. Paige knew. She's been helping them plan it." The room started spinning. The world around me blurred as I struggled to process his words. I barely registered the pitying looks from the departing guests or Claire's arms around me as I broke down. Then, a scream echoed from the reception hall. "Call an ambulance," someone shouted. Grandma Brianna had collapsed. The hospital waiting room was a haze of fluorescent lights and beeping machines. Time seemed to crawl as I sat there, numb and trembling. Finally, a doctor approached me, his face grave. "Miss Halton, your grandmother suffered a major heart attack. The stress triggered an underlying condition." His words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. My world had shattered in a single day, and the pieces seemed impossible to pick up. I sat by Grandma Brianna's hospital bed, clutching her frail hand. My voice trembled as I whispered, "The joint account, it's empty. Tony took everything. Everything we saved for the wedding." Grandma Brianna's voice was faint but fierce. "Get my lawyer. Now." The lawyer arrived, and Brianna's hands shook as she signed the papers. "I'm changing everything, making it ironclad. He won't get a penny," she said with determination. Later that evening, Luke, Paige's husband, visited me. His face was etched with regret as he delivered the final blow. "Leah, Tony's real estate empire is all fake. He's never closed a single deal. The office he showed you? Rented for appearances. The cars? Leased under fake names." My voice barely rose above a whisper. "How long have you known?" "Too long," he admitted. "Paige's been covering for him, helping him scam people. I've been gathering evidence for weeks." I watched as Grandma Brianna faded, her last words haunting me. "Don't let them win, sweetheart. Show them what a Halton is made of." The day she passed, a package arrived, a final gift from her. Inside, I found proof of everything. Tony's debts, fake business documents, and emails between him and Paige planning the entire scheme. There was also the deed to the mansion and documents for my inheritance, $10 million and 4 properties. Luke had uncovered it all in Paige's office. "It's time everyone knew the truth," he said quietly. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by wedding gifts I'd have to return. As I read through the lawyer's documents, I realized how far Grandma Brianna had gone to protect me, even after her death. Claire visited, watching me comb through the evidence. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked at the mountain of lies Luke had uncovered, feeling my resolve sharpen. "I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone else." A year later, my life was completely different. My tech startup had taken off, and I gained not just financial success, but a renewed sense of self-worth. Tony showed up at my office one day, uninvited, looking disheveled. "Leah, I made a mistake," he stammered. "Jamie, she wasn't you. She left me after spending all your money." I rose from my desk, smoothing my designer suit. "There it is," I said calmly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." Tony's face fell as security escorted him out. I watched him go, feeling no regret. I was finally free of his lies, ready to embrace the future Brianna had fought to secure for me. Her legacy lived on, and I was determined to honor it every day. I motioned toward security, but Tony wasn't finished. Meanwhile, Paige had started hovering nearby, trying to insert herself into the situation like a concerned friend. "Leah, sweetie," Paige cooed. "Tony's changed, and let's be honest, that inheritance should really be shared. You two were practically married, after all." Her words dripped with manipulation, but I didn't have time to respond before the lawsuit hit. Tony filed a claim, insisting we were in a common-law partnership. He argued that we had shared finances and lived together as a couple, demanding a portion of the inheritance. Then came the rumors. My phone buzzed early one morning. Claire, my assistant, burst into my office, visibly upset. "Mrs. Lauren called," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "Paige has been telling everyone at the country club that you manipulated Brianna into changing her will on her deathbed. The accusations were absurd, but the damage to my reputation had begun." Later that day, Olivier appeared at my door, guilt written all over his face. "Leah, I can't stay quiet anymore," he said, looking tortured. "I overheard Tony and Paige talking the night before your wedding. It was all a setup. You weren't the first. There were 4 other engagements in different states, all broken off after Tony drained the finances of wealthy families." His words hit me like a truck. My chest tightened, and my thoughts raced. Tony had played me. Before I could process it all, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Luke, an old family friend and a lawyer. "Leah, meet me at the diner on 6th. Bring your phone," he said curtly before hanging up. At the diner, Luke slid a small USB drive across the table. His expression was somber but resolute. "I planted a recorder in Paige's study," he explained. With trembling hands, I plugged in my earbuds. A crackling sound gave way to Tony's voice. "Once we file the lawsuit, she'll settle," he said, his tone smug. "No one wants their family's dirty laundry aired in court." Then Paige's voice chimed in, cold and calculating. "The rumors about Brianna are working. People are already questioning Leah's character." Tony laughed. "With my charm and your connections, the judge will believe we were practically married. Those fake documents you made about us living together? Perfect forgeries. Leah won't know what hit her." My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white as I gripped the edge of the table. I stared at Luke, stunned. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because Paige and Tony have destroyed too many families," he said firmly. "I'm tired of watching them hurt people. They're meeting again tomorrow. I'll have everything we need by then." I looked down at the USB drive in my hands, Brianna's last words echoing in my mind. "Leah, don't let them win." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of hope. "Let's end this," I said, determination surging through me. I decided it was time to settle things once and for all, in court. As the trial began, my lawyer stood confidently before the judge. "Your Honor," he announced, "before we proceed with Mr. Bennett's lawsuit, I'd like to submit new evidence." From his briefcase, he pulled out a USB drive containing the recordings Luke had given me. Tony's face turned ashen, and his lawyer stammered, "What evidence?" Moments later, the courtroom was filled with the damning audio. Tony and Paige's voices echoed through the room, detailing their scheme in their own words. Gasps filled the gallery as the truth unraveled. But this was only the start. A few days after the trial, a stern-faced FBI agent walked into my office. "Miss Halton," he said, handing me a badge, "we need to talk. We've been tracking a pattern of marriage fraud across state lines, and it seems Mr. Bennett is at the center of it." Hours later, I found myself in a federal building. Photos of Tony's previous targets were spread out on a table for women, for broken engagements, all from wealthy families. "Every time, it's the same playbook," Tommy Shelby explained. "He gains their trust, drains their finances, and disappears. And Paige? She's not just an accomplice. She's been laundering money through fake property deals for years." Soon after, Paige's real estate office was raided. As agents combed through the evidence, the scope of her crimes became clear. 17 years, Claire whispered when the sentencing day arrived. Tony was handed a hefty federal prison sentence, his smug demeanor replaced by utter defeat. Paige sobbed openly in court as her real estate license was officially revoked. "Please," she cried, "I have mortgage payments." I couldn't help but smile. I reached into my bag and waved the foreclosure papers for her so-called dream house. "I bought it at auction," I said, my voice steady. When news of the scandal broke, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors who had once ignored me were now eager to talk. "Miss Halton," a venture capitalist's voice buzzed over the speakerphone, "we're very impressed with your startup's potential. Would you be interested in discussing a Series A investment?" Meanwhile, Luke filed for divorce from Paige, turning state's evidence to help ensure her conviction. Olivier stepped forward too, working with the authorities to identify other victims. Together, we founded a support group for those Tony and Paige had wronged. Each week, the group grew larger, filled with people who finally felt heard. One day, Claire tossed a letter onto my desk. Tony's handwriting was scrawled across the envelope, the prison stamp clear. "Are you going to read it?" she asked. I shook my head and fed it straight into the shredder. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. With a satisfied sigh, I opened my laptop, logged into my account, and clicked Send Donation. Another $200,000 was transferred to the Fraud Victims Support Fund we had established. As I leaned back, gazing out the window, I couldn't help but admire the view. It was spectacular, the best from Paige's former dream house. Justice had been served, and life, at last, was moving forward. I turned the house into a shelter, a haven for women escaping financial abuse. It felt like the perfect way to honor Grandma Brianna's legacy. She had always believed in helping others and would have been proud of New Beginnings, as we named it. "To New Beginnings," I said, raising my glass with Claire, Luke, and Olivier on the shelter's opening day. The sun streamed through the windows, filling the room with warmth and hope. Somewhere in a federal prison, Tony was beginning the first of his 17-year sentence. Paige, on the other hand, was crammed into a tiny studio apartment, drowning in legal fees and far from her life of luxury. As for me, I was just getting started. My company's IPO was scheduled for the following week, a milestone I never could have imagined reaching during those dark days. Life had turned around and I was finally in control. But I often wondered, what would you do if you discovered your ex had kept evidence of their past scams? Would you turn them in immediately? Use it as leverage? Or wait and plan your next move like I did? The hardest part wasn't the betrayal on my wedding day. It was the realization that my grandmother had seen through Tony's lies long before I did. She had changed her will to protect me. One last, selfless act of love. It was bittersweet, but it reminded me of something important. Sometimes, love means making tough choices to protect the people we care about. That's what Brianna did for me. And it's what I now strive to do for others. So tell me, have you ever had to deal with a manipulative ex? How did you reclaim your power and move forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Because here's the thing, success is the best revenge, but justice? Justice is pretty sweet too. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of survival, revenge, and karma finally catching up to those who deserve it. New stories drop every week, showcasing incredible journeys of overcoming toxic relationships and coming out stronger on the other side. Together, we're building a community of resilience, strength, and hope. And always remember, when you're faced with betrayal, the best thing you can do is rise above it, rebuild, and show the world that you're unstoppable.